Greetings VFI supporters and anyone else watching this video. I'm Liran Yael Snyder once again sitting in for my dad Barry. It's been another tough week here in Israel, with several more attacks coming from the Iranian-backed terrorist organization in Lebanon. The fighting in Gaza appears to be winding down, and the IDF is preparing to make a shift in its focus to the northern arena. Tensions are soaring in Judea and Samaria, however, and there was some more discouraging economic news. All of that and much more is just ahead on this week's edition of VFI News from Israel. Defense Minister Yoav Gallant gave a briefing to the international press in Jerusalem this week, telling them, among other things, that Hamas has been sharply degraded in the last 11 months and can no longer be considered an organized fighting force. It has reverted to its origins as a disorganized guerrilla band able to harass IDF troops deployed in the Gaza Strip, but unable to threaten Israel with more attacks like the October 7, 2023 massacre. Regarding the ongoing efforts to reach a deal with Hamas, which would trade a 6-week temporary ceasefire for the release of 30 hostages who are female, elderly, ailing, or otherwise highly vulnerable, Gallant was positive on this idea. However, U.S. officials are reportedly very skeptical on the chances of a hostage release deal, and sadly, I must say I agree. Hamas is making new demands while endlessly blaming Israel for the impasse. They clearly don't actually want this deal to go through, and they might be right in thinking that Israel will get blamed if it doesn't. So they have nothing to lose by drawing the negotiations out. In any case, the next day, Monday, in remarks to a group of IDF troops training in the Galilee, Gallant said that the time had come to shift the effort to the northern front. For this reason, he told the soldiers that they should prepare themselves for a ground offensive into Lebanon to push Hezbollah back away from the border. To be fair to Gallant, these words were echoing what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and many other Israeli officials have been saying in recent days. With this in mind, I have to make a brief comment on the growing possibility of a large-scale conflict between Israel and Hezbollah. Several voices in Israel's defense and security establishment, including former IDF chief of staff and current leader of the National Unity faction in the Knesset, Benny Gantz, have voiced support in recent days for an IDF offensive into Lebanon. These proposals acknowledge the danger of widespread damage to Israel's home front from Hezbollah's large arsenal of rockets, UAVs, and missiles. But again, the feeling is that this danger must be faced one way or the other, sooner or later. So the best option, or maybe the least bad option, is to get the war started on Israel's terms so that it can be ended both quickly and successfully, with damage to Israel minimized. I was born here in Israel and I've lived here for a very long time. I did my service in the IDF and I'm familiar with all the issues and variables that are being discussed. The arguments being made in favor of an Israeli strike on Hezbollah make absolutely perfect sense. But on a human level, as a wife and soon-to-be mother of twins, I find all of this absolutely concerning. I know I'm not the only one, as we Israeli moms talk to each other about these things we're worried about for our children all the time. There are literally millions of us having these conversations right now, including Jewish mothers, Arab mothers, Druze mothers, Christian mothers, Muslim mothers, and many more. So I'm asking you, as a personal favor and on behalf of all these mothers here in Israel, to go to our website, visionforisrael.com, and click on the Projects tab. There you'll see some of the many ways this organization is helping the people of Israel prepare as best as we can for the difficult times ahead. We're providing bomb safety shelters to protect people from incoming rockets, heat-resistant clothes, and other specialized equipment to volunteer firefighters, crews, training, and supplies to medical first response teams, and much more. We're also continuing with our long-standing projects to stock the Millennium Center food warehouse with groceries and warehouse supplies. We distribute these items regularly to hundreds of families who need help all over Israel, and in the last 11 months of war, the economic hardships, the need for this kind of assistance has greatly increased. But we're trying to stock up as much as we can now. Because if there is a war with Hezbollah, which could drag in Iran and other regional allies of Iran, it could lead to Israel losing the use of our airport and seaports for weeks or even longer. That means there wouldn't be any food imports and we'd have to get by on what we've already got here. In other words, friends, Israel's situation is already very bad and it could get a lot worse. We need your help more than we've ever needed it before, so I'm once again asking you to go to visionforisrael.com and click on the Projects tab. Now back to the news. An airstrike in Syria overnight Sunday is believed to have targeted Iranian-built weapons factories and other infrastructure that Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps has built in Syria to project power and threaten Israel. That project was knocked back a few paces by these strikes, according to the analysts who spoke to the media about it. In another major development, the security situation in Judea and Samaria, known to most of the world as the West Bank, has seen a sharp deterioration in recent days. The IDF is now designating northern Samaria as an active combat zone on par with Gaza. Major security sweeps have been initiated in the cities of Tulkarem and Jenin, with Nablus also seeing a great deal of activity. In Judea, which is south of Jerusalem, there have also been terrorist attacks, including a shooting attack near Hebron, which left 3 Israeli police officers dead. Car bombing attacks also struck the Gush Etzion block just south of Jerusalem last week. Security officials believe that the increase in violence in Judea and Samaria is the result of Iran's efforts to smuggle weapons and money into the region to create problems for Israel that will distract it from the threat of Hezbollah. Now that the war in Gaza is almost over, Iran is trying to find a way to tie down IDF soldiers somewhere else, anywhere else, rather than have them focus their attention on Hezbollah. A word of explanation is in order here. The Palestinian city in Judea and Samaria are supposed to be administered by the Palestinian Authority, with security there being the responsibility of the PA police, which are trained, equipped, and funded by the US and UK. However, the PA is very unpopular with most Palestinians because it is perceived as being corrupt and incompetent. The PA police are also viewed by many as being an auxiliary of the IDF doing Israel's dirty work for it. Whether any of that is fair or not, it's a fact of life, and in partial terms, this means that there are many young Palestinians in these cities that are eager to join Hamas, which promises to get rid of the PA and replace it with a better administration. The fact that the utterly failed to set up food administration in the Gaza Strip must have been missed by a lot of young Palestinians, or maybe not. I say maybe not because many of these young people are even rejecting Hamas and instead are joining one of the growing number of heavily armed street gangs who reject any and all governing authorities. They are a law unto themselves, and they've taken control of several neighborhoods of these cities which are supposed to be under PA administration. In Jenin and Tulkarem, the situation has gotten so bad that the PA has actually lost control of the streets to these gangs entirely. That's why the IDF needs to go in and to try and bring the situation under control. It is to be hoped that after the IDF has taken care of most of the ringleaders, the PA police can go back in to finish the job and reestablish control of these cities. The IDF certainly doesn't want to be doing this again and again every few months. That brings us back to Iran and their strategy of tying up IDF troops in Judea and Samaria so they won't be able to fight Hezbollah in Lebanon. It's also important to keep in mind that this problem is not only the result of the PA being overwhelmed. It's also because the economy in these areas they're administering is so bad that the Iranian money tempts many young people who have no other job prospects. Iran is actively trying to build up terrorist groups and criminal gangs in Judea and Samaria using the same methods they used to build up Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in Gaza, and for that matter, the same way they did it with Hezbollah in Lebanon. Israel has no choice but to push back against these Iranian efforts. Happily, Israel won't be alone in pushing back against Iran, and that's partially Iran's own fault. In recent weeks, Iran's clerical regime has come in for a lot of criticism from international human rights groups for the unusually high number of political prisoners who have been executed by the regime. The economy in Iran is also in very poor shape, and the long-suffering Iranian people are raising their voices in a growing chorus of demands for reforms. Perhaps most significantly, the U.S. officially accused Iran of supplying ballistic missiles to Russia for use in its war against Ukraine. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken made the announcement on Tuesday in London at a joint press conference with his British counterpart, Foreign Secretary David Lammy. This development and the growing cooperation between Russia and Iran threatens European security and demonstrates how Iran's destabilizing influence reaches far beyond the Middle East, he said. He added that Russia is sharing technology with Iran, including the nuclear realm. Shortly after Blinken spoke, new sanctions on Iran were announced by the US, UK, France, and Germany. This act is an escalation by both Iran and Russia and is a direct threat to European security, said a joint statement from the three countries shared by the German Foreign Ministry. However, it is my sad duty to have to inform you that Israel has made mistakes too, and they are likely to attract opposition from many quarters. This includes the shooting death of Aysenur Edgi, a 26-year-old woman who had dual U.S. and Turkish citizenship during a street demonstration she was participating in Nablus last week. The IDF confirmed on Tuesday that an initial investigation has shown that it was likely an accidental shot fired by an IDF soldier that killed Edgi and expressed regret for the incident. The IDF statement also took note of the fact that this had occurred in the context of a violent riot which included the burning of tires and throwing stones at IDF's troops. IG might not have been participating in these acts, but she was among others who were, and the shot that killed her was aimed at one of the main instigators of the violence, according to the IDF statement. That is unlikely to make any difference to Israel's many detractors, including Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who spoke over the weekend to a meeting of the Organization of the Islamic Conference in Ankara, using IG's death as a springboard for launching a torrent of criticism at Israel. He summed up his speech by asking the assembled foreign ministers and heads of state of Muslim-majority countries to join together in a combined effort against the world's one and only Jewish state. Candidly, Erdogan has been talking like this for years, and most people see right through his attempt to use the issue of Israel to cast himself as the leader of the Muslim world. He is also 70 years old, and even his supporters acknowledge that he might not be in the picture much longer. But the bad news is that he has been in charge of Turkey for over 20 years now, and in that time he has steered his country, which was once a regional ally of Israel and a major geopolitical ally of the United States, into a very different trajectory. The damage he has done will continue long after he's gone, and that includes all the passion he's stirred up on the Muslim street against Israel. Now, moving on to another big issue Israel is dealing with this week. Our governing coalition is once again facing a crisis that could lead to its dissolution and trigger new elections. That's because the different factions which make up the governing coalition have strong disagreements over what should be prioritized in the upcoming 2025 state budget. Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich has already said that large cuts will have to be made and tax increases have also already been enacted. Even larger increases are being considered, and we haven't even seen the final budget yet. As happens almost every year, war or no war, different factions are demanding that their pet projects are spared the cuts that everyone acknowledges are necessary. Additionally, the Haredi United Torah Judaism Party is quietly letting it be known that they will not vote to support the coalition's budget until the issue of the IDF service for ultra-Orthodox young men is not sorted out to their satisfaction. This issue has been with us for a long time, and I don't think it's going to get sorted out in the next few months, which means the state budget might not get passed by the end of the calendar year, which would automatically trigger new elections. Although I'm sure a lot of people think we need new elections, they cost a lot of money and take up a lot of this country's bandwidth. I'm not sure we have it in us to have an election during a major war accompanied by an economic crisis. Speaking of the economic crisis, another report published on Tuesday by the IVC Gornitsky KPMG Investors Group showed a major slowdown in the first half of 2024 for Israel's venture capital funds. I could give many more examples of the bad economic news we're getting here in Israel, friends. But we're almost out of time for this report, so I won't do that. I'll just ask you once again to go to visionforisrael.com and click on the Projects tab. VFI is assisting many families in financial distress all over Israel right now, and we probably have to continue with this assistance for a very long time. I want to continue the tradition of ending these reports with some good news, and this week the good news comes from a very unexpected source, the International Court of Justice. The deadline of South Africa to submit evidence to the court in support of its charge that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza is approaching on October 28th, but South Africa is already asking for more time. That, according to many analysts, is likely because they have not been able to find any evidence to submit, and so the case against Israel is unlikely to move forward. Until next week, friends, I'm Liran Yael Snyder, and this has been another edition of VFI News from Israel.